I'm Anna Blackburn, and I'm here interviewing Robyn O'Keeffe, final year social policy and sociology student, and this year's only campaigns and engagement candidate for the 2022 Student Union elections. What, if any, positions do you currently hold on campus?
I am the current environmental campaign coordinator for the Students' Union.
So what experience do you have that qualifies you for this position?
Well, I was elected class rep in first year, so I was my class rep for social policy and sociology stage 1, and then I ran in the executive elections when I was in first year for arts, humanities and social sciences college officer, and so I was elected alongside my co-college officer, and we managed all of the class reps in that constituency for the year. It was great experience. We were successful in recruiting class reps, and the majority of the seats were filled that year, which was a great achievement for us. And I was the auditor of the Food Society last year, and although we were completely online for the year, we were successful in increasing our membership and engagement by about 30%.
What are the three main issues that UCD students are most concerned about right now?
Housing for sure. The cost of accommodation, trying to find accommodation is another massive one. As well as that, the fees, the cost of fees, we have the highest in Europe or the European Union, and as well as that, the resit and the repeat fees are significantly holding students back from continuing their education, and just general equality here on campus, gender equality, racism, diversity and inclusion. These are all things that we need to work on.
Yeah. So do you think this is a good year? This has been a good year for engagement with the SU?
I think that's a tricky question, just because it's the first year back on campus since COVID. We're dealing with 2 years of students that have never been on campus. Everyone is trying to get back on track now, which means that you've got societies, clubs, all the different groups trying to increase their engagement. I don't think there's an issue. I think that students want to put themselves out there. I think students want to attend events. They want to be involved with campaigns, and I think that the most successful way that the Students' Union can do that is actually, again, with the collaborative community, working with the different groups on campus that also focus on enriching student life. That's the clubs, that's the societies, that's Res Life, for the people living on campus. Green Campus, and that is how we will boost engagement.
Yeah. And you talk about having on-campus engagement a lot. What about off-campus? There's lots of students who live off-campus and far away, or there's lots of lecturers who even offer things online now. Are you planning on sort of increasing online engagement as well, or do you want more of a focus on on-campus engagement?
I think a hybrid version is definitely the way to go since the pandemic. I want to focus a little bit more on the social media campaigns. I want to work a bit more closely with the social media and marketing manager who manages the socials, so that everything that we are doing on and off campus is available to all students, whether or not they're here.
Do you think the It's Not Me, It's UCD protest was a success?
Yes, I believe so. For the first demonstration that happened on campus since the pandemic, it was a success. Everyone put in a massive effort to promote, to leaflet.
I know because of it being hybrid, and you said that engagement is better this year, but why do you think that generally engagement is so poor?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's poor. I think that some people just don't want to be involved, and that's fair, and we can't force them to be involved if they don't want to.
So what are some of the major campaigning issues you see being of interest to you as campaigns and engagement officer next year if you're to be successful?
I will be focusing on equality. I will be focusing on sustainability. I will be focusing on fees, establishing a more collaborative community here on campus.
So what are some of the ways that students can express their concern or their ideas for the SU and for engagement?
Well, we will have our student union emails that we will be circulating. I will be answering those constantly. I'm hoping to be more active on campus, less inside the office, more approachable, having roadshows, having stands, and just generally being around for people to speak to me as often as possible. Office hours, very basic things that work.
So why do you think there are so few candidates for sabbatical roles this year?
To be honest, I heard of a lot more people that were looking for nomination signatures. I don't think it's because people were not looking to run for these roles. I think it sparks the question of whether or not if there are too many nomination signatures required in order to get on the ballot. I think a significant factor of that too had to do with nominations being online this year. That is something that I would like I'd like to bring back the physical nomination forms next year, and perhaps if it doesn't happen by the end of this term, that we reassess the requirement for nomination signatures.
And this year saw lower class representative recruitment than the previous 2 years. What more will you do to increase these numbers, if anything?
I will be working more closely with the Sabbatical team, the executive committee, because I will be asking the college officers to lecture address in their own constituencies, having roadshows, coffee mornings, being out there and speaking to students, telling them what the role entails and how it could benefit them and their course. That again was very successful when I was a college officer. It was an idea that we came up with ourselves, that we would go out and spend a bit of time in Newman just recruiting class reps. It was successful.
Many of the UCD students come from different backgrounds. Do you think this plays a role in engagement with the union on systemic issues?
I think it would be fair to agree that if a issue does not affect certain students, then they might not necessarily feel the need to get involved. Absolutely. And so that is why I want to zone in on campaigns and issues that affect everyone. All students are affected by fees. And whether or not you're in a position to pay that a little bit easier than other students, it's still a lot of money. It's the same with accommodation. You know, I lived on campus, and that is not because I chose to live on campus, but because it was the only place that I could rent at the time, and I worked significantly overtime to pay for that. From an outside point of view, someone might think that anyone that lives on campus can afford it, and it's not really that they can afford it, but that they must afford it.
So you mentioned in your manifesto about not wasting time on strategies that won't work.
Yeah.
What are some examples of some unsuccessful strategies that you've seen employed in recent years?
I think promotion plays a significant factor in engagement, in campaigns, getting people involved, getting attendance. We need to be organised and prepared and be promoting the actions and the things that we are doing well in advance, so that students can prepare accordingly. I've learned that from being part of the Food Society. I don't think it's effective necessarily teasing things. I think it's much better to announce, make a large announcement,
in advance.
In advance. You know, and that starts with announcing all of our events and our campaigns for the week. You know, the week before, because that's how students plan their week. You know what I mean? Societies do it. They announce all of their weekly events on at the latest the Sunday, and that's when students start to plan their week. So I want to focus more on that.
So you also mentioned in your manifesto that you plan to decolonize the curriculum at UCD. How do you plan on doing this, and can you sort of elaborate on what you mean by that?
Yes, I would be expanding on the work that Daryl, the current Campaigns and Engagement Officer, has been doing. He's been working closely with academics and with anti-racism groups to bring in more material from Black writers and Black academics, non-white, because the curriculum at the moment is very Eurocentric, very Western.
So you also mentioned holding transgender training workshops. Mm-hmm. What do you hope to accomplish in these workshops, and who are they for? Like, who do you want to attend these workshops?
First, I want to preface by saying that when I say these workshops, I mean that I would like to bring in professionals, people with more experience in holding workshops like these. I've seen it being done in other universities, and so I think that it would be important to bring in here. I want to hold workshops on educating cisgender people on transness, so that trans people feel safer on campus.
So you said you want to support the integration of international students into life at UCD and in Dublin. Mm-hmm. How would you extend that beyond what is already being done by UCD Global and the International Student Society?
Well, we have a diversity and inclusion officer as well as an international students campaign coordinator on the campaigns forum. I'm looking to establish working groups relevant to these roles, working groups, subcommittees, advisory groups, where any student can join, and they would be able to voice their concerns, voice their needs, voice what they would like from their union, and from there we can make the appropriate action. I want to establish subcommittees relevant to the issues that are pertaining to students most. The framework behind this is, for example, the environmental campaign coordinator and the Eco UCDSU group. So that's the framework that I'm basing this on, and kind of expanding that not necessarily to each campaign coordinator role, but also not limited to those roles. And so international students and diversity and inclusion would fall under that.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. This has been great. I really appreciate it.